Over. This is what it is. That's when I have to do everything. Okay. Thank you. Could you bring me another coffee, please? A good coffee. Thank you. Ay, Chevra, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just got a message that nobody heard anything I said. I was talking and talking and talking and nobody heard anything I said. So I apologize. I simply forgot to plug in the mic. Okay. I decided today we have to start 10 o'clock on time, just like I decided Friday. So Friday there was one mishap, and today I forgot to plug in the mic. So my apologies to you, but I'll start over again. Okay. I hope now everybody can hear me. The Chevra can hear me now. Okay, I apologize for the mishap here. I forgot to connect the mic, so there was no audio coming in. My apologies. Let's start again. Okay, please open up your Rambams, the 4th chapter of Hilchos Deis. Okay, we are about to begin Perik Revi of Hilchos Deis. This is a rare and fascinating chapter in Rambam, where the Rambam is going to articulate the daily diet of the human being. The regimen of life, our routines, our schedules, our habits, how to live. Let's begin. Perik Revi, Halacha Aleph. Since a body being healthy and wholesome is one of the ways of Hashem, because it's impossible a person should understand or know anything about the Creator when the person is sick. It is so much more difficult to have divine consciousness when the person is lethargic or heavy, or not perfectly wholesome. Lefichach, therefore, tzarich laharchik adam atzmai midvarim hama'abdim es haguf. Therefore, a person needs to distance himself from things that destroy the body, and to engage in those things that make a person healthy and strong. And here they are. A person should only eat when he's hungry and should only drink when he's thirsty. A person should not delay moving his bowels even for a moment. At any time that a person needs to either urinate or move his bowels or her bowels, they should do it immediately. Base. A person should not eat until the point that they're full, until the stomach is completely satiated. That's not a healthy way of living. 1 quarter less than your satiation. In other words, you should eat approximately 3/4 of the amount that will make you mamish full. A person should not drink water in middle of eating, only a little bit of mazuk b'yayin, diluted in wine. And when the food begins to be digested in one's intestines, then the person should drink whatever he needs to drink. But he shouldn't drink an excessive amount of water even after the food is digested. A person should not eat until he examines himself very well to make sure that he doesn't have to tend to his needs to move his bowels. A person should not eat until he walks before the meal, so that he raises his body temperature. He builds up a sweat. Or the person, instead of walking, can engage in labor, physical labor. or can toil and exert himself in any other way that will cause the body to perspire and raise its temperature. Klolei shel davar, the principle is, Ya'ane gufoi v'yiga kol yoim ba'boiker at sheyaschil gufoi lachem. Every single day in the morning, a person needs to exercise. A person should exert the body to the point that the body begins, the temperature of the body is raised. The body perspires and sweats. V'yishkoit ma'at, and then the person should relax. Acha tisyashev nafshay. After the exercise, the person should relax until he regains his composure, his soul is settled, and then v'oichel, and then you eat. If you bathed in warm water after exerting yourself, after the exercise, whether it was walking, whether it was working, or it was another form of physical exertion, after that you bathe in warm water and then you wait a little bit and you eat, the Rambam says that is beneficial. Gimel. La'olam. Whenever a person eats, yeshiv b'mkayme, he should sit in this place, in one place. A yital smile, or he could recline to his left. But v'lo yahalach, shouldn't be walking while the person is eating. V'lo yirkov, shouldn't be riding on an animal. V'lo yiga, shouldn't be busy exerting himself in the middle of eating. V'lo yizazeya gufay, or causing anything to shake up or startle the body. V'lo you don't engage in any of these activities while eating. V'lo yitayel, actually sakal hamazon shebemayah, should not take a walk and stroll until after the food is digested in the person's intestines. Somebody who immediately after eating, before digestion, goes and strolls or starts exercising and exerting oneself, this brings upon a person harmful and difficult illnesses. Dalet. Day and the night together are comprised of 24 hours. It's enough for a human being to sleep during a third of those 24 hours, which would be, of course, a third of 24. You have 8, and 16, and another 8 is 24, so that would be 8 hours. There's the famous explanation of the Magen Avraham, who brings in Orach Chaim Reish Lamed Tes that there's a pasuk in Iyov, Job chapter 3, Yashanti oz yanuachli, I slept, and then I became rested and tranquil. Oz is a combination of two letters, Aleph and Zayin. Aleph is 1 and Zayin is 8. So this is a remez in Torah and Iyov that the amount of sleep should be a shanti oz yanuachli, when I sleep oz, when I sleep for 8 hours, which is a third of the day and the night, as the Rambam says, then the person gets the full rest that they need. The Rambam says it's enough, 8 hours is enough. V'yiyu b'soif halayla. The Rambam says they should usually be towards the end of the night. So from the beginning of the sleep until sunrise should be 8 hours, and those are the 8 hours when the person is asleep. So a person gets out of bed before sunrise. Hey, a person should not sleep not on his face, not on his back, only on the side. The beginning of the night should sleep on the left side. At the end of the night, he should sleep on the right side. Do not go to sleep right after you eat. Person should wait after the meal 3 or 4 hours and then go to sleep. Generally, a person should not sleep during the day. Vav. Dvarim hameshalshalim es b'nei me'ayim. Laxative foods that loosen the stools, loosen the human digestive system. For example, kigay, anavim, grapes, te'enim, figs, tusim, mulberries, agosim, pears, some translated as plums, which we know to be a laxative food. Avatichim, melons, umine hakishuyim, certain types of cucumbers, umine melavafinus, certain types of zucchini. These are all foods that loosen the stools. It should be eaten first before the meal. But do not mix them with the meal itself. Don't eat them together with the main meal. You should wait until they have descended from the upper stomach, and then you eat your meal. Conversely, those foods which cause constipation, they are constipating, pomeggranates. Ufrishim are quinces, which till today we know, I think, is a food that is good for it's a constipator. V'tapuchim, apples. Ukrustumulim. Krustumulim are called crustamanian pears. They are in the family of pears, pear species. These are all foods that are constipating. So the Rambam says, these should be eaten immediately after the meal, but not in great quantity. Zayin. If a person wants to eat poultry and meat in one sitting, first eat the poultry, then the meat. If a person wants to eat in one sitting eggs and poultry, first eat the eggs. If a person wants to eat both meat of large cattle and meat of small cattle, behemedaka is small cattle, for example, sheep. Behemegasa would be large cattle, for example, an ox. First, you eat the meat of the small cattle. Generally, the person should always eat the lighter first, and then the heavier food afterwards. Ches. In the summer months, when it's hot, a person should eat cold food. Probably the best translation is unseasoned foods. Without spices. A person shouldn't have many spices. But a person should use vinegar, like they would dip bread in vinegar. In the rainy season, the opposite. One should eat warmer foods or seasoned foods. And one could use many spices, should use many spices. In the rainy months, in the winter months, one should eat some mustard and chiltis. Chiltis is a herb which has a very powerful smell. It's translated in English, or the scientific term is asa foetida. Asa foetida. That's the translation of chiltis, which is a type of herb. So the Rambam says a little mustard and a little chiltis is fine in the winter. According to this pattern, a person should behave, whether in colder climates or in warmer climates, choosing the food appropriate to each and every place. Tess. There are foods that are really harmful, and a person should never eat them. For example, the large fish which are aged and salted, and the aged and salted cheese, truffles and mushrooms, and the aged salted meat. Of course, they didn't have refrigerators then, so salting was the way of preserving a food after a while, so it shouldn't spoil. V'yayin migitoi, wine fresh out of the wine press. The Rambam says it's not good. V'tavshil sheshat shenadav reicha, a dish, a cooked food which has been left over until it produces a bad odor. V'chein kol meichel shereicha ra mar b'yoser, or any food that has a bad smell or a very bitter taste. These are like poison to the body. There are other foods which are harmful, but they are not as harmful compared to those mentioned earlier in the beginning of Allah. So when it comes to this food, a person should eat them only sparingly and after intervals of many days. It's not like the first category, which he said you should never eat. He says eat less and take a break in between. A person should not eat them regularly as his or her main diet or constantly as a side dish with the food. An example of this category. Large fish or cheese and milk which has been left over for more than 24 hours after milking. The meat of large oxen or he-goats. Pul are what we call horse beans. Adoshim, lentils, safir, chickpeas, lechem sa'irim, barley bread, lechem matzos, bread which are known as matzos, not fermented, unleavened bread. Hakruv, cabbage, chatzir, leeks, ptsalim, onions, shumim, garlic, chardal, mustard, tznoin, radishes, kol elu macholim royim heim. All of these are considered harmful foods. And therefore it's fitting that a person should eat of these foods very sparingly and only in the rainy season. Abstaining entirely of these foods in the summer. Of these, horse beans and lentils alone, one should not eat either in the summer or the winter. Squash could be eaten in the summer season. Yud. There are foods which are also harmful, but less than the two previous categories. And here is an example of these foods. Oif hamayim. Oif hamayim is waterfowl, like duck, geese, etc. Ubneyoyin haktanim, young pigeons. Tmarim, dates. Lechem koli b'shemen, bread which is roasted in oil. Oy lechem shenilosh b'shemen, or flour that is kneaded in oil. Or v'hasoilos shenipuay sekol tzarchat shleinisharaba reach mursa, flour which has been sifted so well that no bran is left. In other words, white flour. The Rambam says that's not good. V'hatzir, tzir is fish brine. Hamuryas, hamuryas is pickled fish oil. They take the oil that's extracted from fish and it's pickled. Ein royal hybris machalos elu. These foods should not be eaten in great quantity. Va'adam, a person, shehu chacham, who is wise, v'koivish es yitzray, and can overcome his natural instinctive inclinations and addictions. V'lo yimashich achar ta'avase. This person will not be drawn after an immediate instinct for gratification. V'lo yoichel ben aniskarim klum, and will not eat nothing of the aforementioned foods, elim nitzrich lem l'refuah, unless they're needed for a particular medical health reason. Hareza gibor, this is the human being whom we call a hero. This is a heroic person, could be connected to the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Ezehu gibor hakoivesh es yitzrei, somebody who conquers the natural, superficial instincts and inclinations. Yud Aleph. Lo'olam yimna adam atzmai mi peiros ha'ilonis, v'lo yarbem em v'afilu yaveshim en tzarech leima rituvim. Person should always avoid fruits. He shouldn't eat of them in large quantity, even when they're dry. Certainly when they are fresh. Avol kaidem sheyizbashlu kol tzarcham. This is even if they're ripe, but eating fruits before they're ripe, this is harem kacharovis leguf. They are like swords to the body. V'chen acharuvim royim la'olam. Another fruit which you should avoid is carobs, which are always harmful. Of course, a little play on words here, because carobs in Hebrew are charuvim. And he said a moment ago that if you eat fruits before they're ripe, they're like charoves, they're like swords to the body. So he says, v'chein charuvim, and also carobs, which are called charuvim, are also like swords. They're harmful. V'chol ha'peiros ha'chamutzim. All pickled fruits. Sometimes they take fruits and they pickle them. He says, royim, they're harmful. You should not eat from them. You can eat a little bit of them, meaning eat them only sparingly in the summer weather and in hot climates. There are exceptions in fruits. Figs, grapes, and almonds are always beneficial, whether they're fresh or whether they're dry. Person can eat of them as much as he or she requires. Nonetheless, you shouldn't eat them constantly, even though they're the most beneficial of all the fruits of the tree. Yud Beis, hadvash v'hayayin, honey and wine, ra liktanim, is harmful for the young, but v'yafel iskenim is good and wholesome for the elderly. V'kol sheken b'mais hakshamim, especially in the rainy season. V'tzarich adam lechel b'mais hachama shnei shlishim asher voichel b'mais hakshamim. Generally, here's the rule. In the summer, one should eat 2/3 of what the same person eats in the winter. Because it's a season of heat, so therefore a person should only eat 2/3 of what the same person would usually eat in the winter. Gimel. A person should always make sure that he or she has loose movements throughout their life, that their stools are loose, that their movement is open, tending slightly towards shilshul, which is diarrhea, tending slightly. This is a cardinal principle in medicine. Whenever one suffers from constipation or has difficulty moving his bowels, serious diseases can beset him. What does a person do? How can one induce loose movements if a person does have mild constipation? So the Rambam gives the directives. If you're dealing with a young person who needs to loosen his system, every single morning this young person should eat meluchim shlukim mitubalim b'shemen zayis ubemuryas ubemelech b'loy pas. The person should eat well-cooked meluchim, which is translated as halimi. Halimi, which is a sort of cress. It's a sort of cress, which I think is still used today to help for constipation. So this person should take cress. It has to be well-cooked. Shlukim means it's well-cooked, but that's not enough. Seasoned in olive oil, and in pickled fish oil, together with salt without bread. Another method is yishta mei shelek shel tardin. Drink the boiled water of cooked spinach. Some translate it as beets. So you cook up the spinach, and the boiled water the person should drink. Kruv, or person can eat cabbage, which is b'shemen zayis, which is seasoned with olive oil, or muryas, and pickled fish oil, umelach, and salt. These are the remedies. If the person is an old elderly person, then he should drink honey diluted with hot water every morning, wait approximately 4 hours, and then eat his meal. Person should do this 1 day, 3 days, 4 days, if necessary, until he has loose bowels. Yudalit. They have given another principle when it comes to physical health. As long as a person exercises and exerts himself greatly and does not eat to the point that you're stuffed, that you're fully satiated, and the person has loose bowels, this person will not suffer sickness. On the contrary, he will grow in strength. This applies even if the person is eating harmful foods. But the fact that this person is constantly exerting themselves and exercising, not stuffing up their system, and they have a loose system in terms of loose bowels, this person will not get sick. Tesvav, conversely, v'chol mi shu yoshev lebetach ve'enoi mesamel. Somebody who sits idly, a couch potato, somebody who sits in one place, does nothing, and does not exercise, or somebody who delays moving of the bowels, going to the bathroom, or somebody is constipated. Here, even if this person is eating the proper foods and taking care to follow the rules of medicine, this person will be full of pain and his strength will fade away. Person needs to exercise and exert oneself and not delay the movement of the bowels and avoid constipation. The quality of the food that the person eats, the Rambam says, is second tier in importance. A general rule. Overeating, where the person stuffs their system with food, is for the body of every human being like poison. It is the main source of all illness. The Rambam says most illnesses which afflict people are caused either by harmful foods or by the person filling his belly, filling his stomach, and overeating to the point that he's stuffed, even if it's healthy food. This is what Shlomo HaMelech refers to in his wisdom when he tells us in Mishlei chapter 21, Shomer pivu l'shoinoi, shomer mitzaris nafsha. Somebody who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from distress. Kolaimar, what does he mean? Shomer piv, when you guard your mouth, not only from what comes out, milechel meichel ra milizboya, from eating harmful foods or from eating too much food, from stuffing myself, from eating to full satiation. And somebody who guards his tongue to speak only about things that you really need or words of wisdom like the Rambam discussed earlier. So a person who guards his mouth in terms of what goes in and his tongue in terms of what goes out, this is a person who protects his soul from a lot of tzaras, from a lot of distress. Tezayah. Derech harechitza. Let's talk about bathing. The proper way is a person should go bathe at least once in 7 days. Don't go into the bathing house right after you eat or when you're starving, when you're hungry. After you ate and the food already began to digest, then the person can go bathe. Person should bathe the entire body in warm water, but not scalding water, not very hot burning water. Besides the head, he should use scalding water. And then the person should bathe the body in tepid water, lukewarm water. It should be yet even more tepid, more lukewarm, until he manages to bathe his body in cold water. But not on the head. On the head, you shouldn't pass water that is lukewarm or cold. Person should not bathe in cold water until he builds up a sweat and gets the whole body, massages his whole body. One should not remain very long in the bath. Once he's built up a sweat and massaged the body, he should rinse himself off and then go out. Before you go into bathe, and after you come out, you should examine yourself if perhaps you have to go to the bathroom. You should also always check if you have to go to the bathroom before you eat and after you eat. Before intimacy and after intimacy. Before exercise and after exercise. Before you go to sleep and after you wake up. All in all, it's asara. We just spoke about 10 times checking yourself. Before you went to bathe, after you went to bathe. Before you went to eat, after you went to eat, that's 4. Before physical relations, after physical relations is 6. Before exercise, after exercise is 8. Before sleeping and after sleeping, the Rambam says altogether is 10 times. Yud Zay. When a person comes out of the bathing house, should make sure to get dressed and cover his head, still in the outer room, so that he shouldn't catch a chill. Be careful even in the summer months. After you leave the bathing house, you should relax until you regain your composure. The body relaxes, and the heat is removed. And only then do you eat. You don't come straight from the bath into the meal. If you went to sleep for a little bit, if you took a nap after you came out of bathing before the meal, that would be very beneficial. It's very beneficial. When you come out of the bathing house, you should not immediately drink cold water, and certainly not when you are bathing. If you're very thirsty when you come out of the bathing and you cannot refrain, then dilute the water with wine or honey and drink. If in the winter months, in the rainy season, after you rinse off from the bathing experience, you smear yourself, you massage yourself with oil, that is also beneficial. Yudches, bloodletting In ancient times, bloodletting was considered a major source of remedying one's health for many different challenges and illnesses. Today it's used as well, but much more sparingly. So the Rambam says, Lo yargil adam lahakis dam tamid. Do not make it a custom to constantly engage in bloodletting. You should not be bled unless there is an extreme necessity. Should not be bled in the summer or the winter, only slightly in Nisan and slightly in Tishrei, meaning in the spring and the fall when the temperatures are moderate. Once a person is 50 years old, they should not be involved. They should not be involved in bloodletting. The day that they allow themselves to bled, just like after 50, he shouldn't be bled at all. He says he also, at any age, should not be bled and go to the bath on the same day. You shouldn't leave on a journey after being bled. Nor should you be bled on the day on which you returned from a trip. And you should eat and drink less than usual on the day of bloodletting. On the day of bloodletting, a person should relax. That day he should not exert himself, nor exercise, nor stroll. Yutes. Shichvas zera. Shichvas zera is the procreative substance, the seed of life, semen. Hikayach haguf. It constitutes the strength of the body, v'chayav, and the very life force of the person. Umoir einayim, in the light of the eyes. V'chol sheteitze b'yoser, an excessive release, constantly, of the seed of life. Haguf kala, it causes the body energy to be depleted. V'koiche kala, and the strength to fade. V'chayav oivdim, and a person's life gets lost. Hu sha'amar Shloima, this is what Shloima said b'chachmasi in his wisdom. Proverbs 31, Mishnah Amarav, Al titein la noshim chei lecha. Don't give away your strength to women. What did Shlomo HaMelech mean with this? What he was saying is, don't give your strength to women, mean you have to be in control of your procreative substance. Because the Rambam says, this constitutes such powerful energy in your soul. Kol hashatuv bebe'ila. Somebody who's addicted and completely submerged in constant, intimate relations, zikna kefetzes alav, old age jumps on him. V'koichei toshesh, his strength weakens. Ve'enov keyes, his eyes dim. V'reich ra noidif mepivu meshachya, and a bad odor exudes from his mouth and his armpit. Usa'ar roishai, and the hair of his head, v'gabes einav, v'risei einav, and his eyelashes and his eyebrows, noishris, they fall out. Usa'ar skonoi v'shechya, usa'ar raglav rava, the hair of his beard and his armpit and the hair on his legs become even more, they increase. Shinov noiflus, the teeth fall out. V'harbe kevim chutz me'elabayim alav, and many other pain and causes of and distressful factors befall this person. Amru chachmei arayfim, the sages among the doctors said, Echad me'elef meis b'shar chaloim ve'elef me'revat hashmash. 1 of 1,000 die from other illnesses, and 1,000 die from excessive tashmish, from excessive physical relations, excessive intercourse. And the Rambam says, Lo yival, a person should not engage in intimacy, elak sheyimtze gufoy bori v'chazak b'yoser, only when he finds his body healthy and strong. That's the time for intimacy. And the person finds that the procreative organ in his body is firm. And it's firm, shaloi l'daitai, meaning he's not attempting to do it. It's just natural. Even if he diverts his mind to other issues, still that part of the body is experiencing firmness, kishur. A person also finds a heaviness from his loins and below, and the tendons of the testicles seem to be stretched, and his body is warm. There's a sense of warmth in his body. Then the Rambam says, Zet tzarich liva. This is the person who needs to engage in physical intimacy. And it's advisable from a medical perspective. It's healthy for this person. But do not engage in physical intimacy when a person is full, satiated, or hungry. After the food is digested in the person's intestines. Person must check to see if he has to go to the bathroom before engaging in relations and afterwards. Person should not engage in intimacy standing or sitting, and not in the bathhouse, and not the day that he's going into the bathhouse, not in the day of bloodletting, and not the day that you're going on a trip or the day that you're returning from a trip, not before the trip and not after the trip. Chaf, conclusion. Whoever lives and conducts himself in the ways that we have guided, that the Rambam says we have drawn up the path, the map, the blueprint for life, whoever lives according to this, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon, I am guaranteeing this person, all his life he will not be sick. Until he gets very old, and he dies, he will not need a doctor. His body will be wholesome, healthy, sound, and remain intact throughout all the days of this person's life. Unless the person, from the beginning of their creation, was born with poor health, or this person already, from his or her early youth, was engaged in harmful behavior and diets and customs, or if a pandemic of an infectious disease or hunger strikes the world, and then of course the person may be struck down. Chaf Aleph. All of these good customs that we stated in this chapter, I wrote them for a healthy person. Somebody who's healthy, who wants to live a healthy life, this is the way to go. Somebody who's sick, or one of his limbs is thick, or somebody who for many years was engaged in harmful behavior. Suddenly they'll open a Rambam and they'll say, let me do all of this as every one of these has different distinct patterns based on their illness. Is discussed in medical literature. Here is a general principle, and that is changing one's routine and schedule is the beginning of illness. Chav Beis, if a person is living in a place without a doctor, whether he's a healthy person or a sick person, he should not move away from all of the habits and patterns we discussed in this chapter, because every single thing we discussed will have good results. Chav Gimel, last halach. Any city that lacks these 10 things, a Torah sage is not allowed to live in the city. Here we go. Roife, number one, a doctor. Uman, a bloodletter. Right? Uman is somebody who, a doctor, a bloodletter. Yeah. The third thing is Beis HaMercha, it's a bathhouse. Next, Beis HaKisei, a latrin, a bathroom. Maya Mitzuyim, available source of water. Could go a nahar, a river, Maya, and a wellspring. Beis HaKnesses, a shul. Umalamet Tinoikis, a teacher for children. V'lavlar, a scribe. V'gabait tzedakah, somebody who takes care of tzedakah, makes sure people donate for charity, and he will distribute it for charity. Ubezdin makim v'chayvshim, and a rabbinical Torah court empowered to impose corporal punishment and, if needed, jail sentences to maintain law, morality, and justice. These are the 10 things that are required in a city for a Talmid Chacham to live in this city. This concludes the 4th chapter of Hilchos Deis. Tomorrow, Be'ezer Hashem, I'm going to give a class that is really an introduction or an epilogue to this chapter, exploring some major questions, and that is, number one, the source of all these routines that the Rambam discusses. Why the Rambam felt the need to put in all the details into his classic halachic work of Mishnah Torah, together with all of the other halachas of the 630 mitzvahs of the Torah. Next question is, are these halachas binding in times after the Rambam? What is their application and relevance in contemporary times? And finally, how do we reconcile this with the concept of the eternity of halacha that applies in all times and all places. These are all fascinating and very, very important questions that we will be discussing Be'ezer Hashem tomorrow in a live shiur, and will be posted on theyeshiva.net as an introduction or an epilogue to chapter 4 of Hilchos Deis of the Rambam.